They laughed when I begged for water. They smirked when I couldn't even sit up straight. And when I cried out, my voice hoarse and shaking, my own blood rolled their eyes like I was nothing but noise. That's the kind of family I raised. That's what my love bought me. I was pinned to that bed like a butterfly under glass. The sheets clung to me with the sour smell of sweat and sickness. My bones felt hollow, my chest heavy, every breath scraping like sandpaper. I thought maybe this was it, the end. And if it had been, they would have let me go without so much as a sip of water or a hand on my shoulder. "Look at her," my grandson muttered once, loud enough for me to hear, like some pathetic statue. "What's the point?" The others chuckled. That sound, young voices spitting cruelty like it was sport, cut deeper than any illness. I'd carried those kids on my hip, fed them, bought their school supplies when their parents were too busy or too broke. And now they stood at the doorway, whispering and snickering like I was some sideshow. I tried to shout, not loud. My throat was too raw, but enough that it carried through the paper-thin walls. "Help me," I rasped. They didn't move. They didn't care. But someone else did. Across the fence, my neighbor, the only one who still waved when she saw me, heard it. I didn't know then. I just remember the slam of her screen door, the quick clatter of her shoes on the driveway, and then voices at the front. Firm, urgent. And then sirens. Red and blue lights seeped through the cracks of the curtains, pulsing across the wallpaper like a heartbeat. My grandkids froze, not out of shame. No, I could see it in their faces. It was fear. Because suddenly, it wasn't just Grandma's voice anymore. It was the law. The door banged open, boots stomped through the hall. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" A police officer shouted, his voice sharp but steady. I managed a whisper. "Yes." Behind him, my children stammered excuses. "She's fine, officer. She's exaggerating. She always does this." But the cop wasn't listening to them. He was looking at me, just me. And I saw in his eyes what my own blood had lost years ago. Recognition. I wasn't noise. I was a person. The paramedics swarmed in. I felt the sting of cold metal against my wrist as they checked my pulse, the oxygen mask pressed to my face. One of them muttered, "Another hour like this and she'd be gone." Gone. My children didn't flinch. My grandchildren didn't cry. They just stood there, shifting on their feet, pale under the glow of the siren light. They wheeled me out on a stretcher. I remember the night air biting my skin, the neighbor standing in her robe on the curb, tears in her eyes. She mouthed, "You'll be okay?" For the first time in months, maybe years, I believed it. Because that night, as the ambulance doors slammed shut, I knew something my family didn't. They thought they had watched me at my weakest, but really, they had just witnessed the moment I stopped being theirs. And when I came back, because I knew I wouldn't come back silent. I'd come back with fire. Hospitals smell like bleach and sorrow, sharp, cold, unforgiving. That's where I woke up, with a needle in my arm and a machine beeping slow like a tired heartbeat. My mouth was dry, but not from thirst this time. It was from anger. I blinked at the fluorescent lights overhead. They hummed like a swarm of insects, steady, relentless. A nurse leaned over me, adjusting the tubes. She looked tired, but her eyes were kind. She said, "You're lucky. Another night in that bed, and you wouldn't be here." Lucky. That word tasted bitter. No, it wasn't luck. It was a scream. It was a neighbor who still believed a human cry meant something. My own children, my grandchildren, they heard me. They chose silence. The nurse fussed with my blanket, but I didn't feel comfort. I felt something else. Clarity. The kind that burns hotter than fever. Later that evening, a doctor came in. White coat, clipboard, voice like stone. "You were badly dehydrated. Malnourished, too. We'll keep you here for observation. Do you have family we should call?" I laughed. A harsh, broken sound that rattled in my chest. Family. He didn't know that family was the reason I was lying here in the first place. I rasped, my voice still weak. They know. They don't care. The doctor paused. He glanced at the nurse, then back at me. Ma'am, what you're describing, that's neglect. It's a crime. I stared at him, my throat tightening, not from sickness this time, but from fury that had been fermenting too long. Then treat it like one, I whispered. And that's when it started. The nurse brought in forms, questions, statements. They wanted dates, details, names. My hand trembled as I held the pen, but I signed every line. My voice cracked, but I told them everything. How long I had been left without food, without water. How the laughter of my grandchildren was the soundtrack to my slow death.
The police officer returned, the same one who'd found me in that suffocating house. He sat at the foot of my bed, notebook open. His jaw was tight, his eyes colder now. "We'll take it from here," he said. "But I need you to be sure. Do you want to press charges against your family?" Family. That word again, sour on my tongue. "Yes," I said, steady now. "Every last one of them." He nodded once. No surprise, no hesitation. He'd seen it before. But for me, it wasn't just a case. It was a war I was finally ready to fight. That night, while the machines hummed and the hallway lights buzzed faintly through the half-open door, I thought about death, how close it had sat at the edge of my bed, how ready my children had been to hand me over to it like I was already gone. And then I thought about survival. Not the soft kind, not just breathing in and out, no. I thought about survival as revenge, as proof, as fire that would scorch every smug smile off their faces. The nurse peeked in once more before her shift ended. She smiled. "You'll be stronger soon." She didn't know I was already stronger, not in body yet, but in will. Because I wasn't going to die in that bed. I wasn't going to vanish in silence. I was going to rise and drag their names through every courtroom, every headline, every whisper in town until they wished I'd never lived at all. And that thought, sharp as glass, carried me into sleep. Recovery isn't gentle. It's slow, ugly, and it hurts in places you forgot existed. Every morning, the nurses woke me at 6, poking, prodding, measuring, scribbling numbers on clipboards like I was a broken machine they weren't sure could be fixed. I lay there, swallowing pills with water so cold it made my teeth ache, and all I could think was, they wanted me to rot in that bed. My own children, my own grandchildren, standing feet away, listening to me gasp and laughing like hyenas. Day 3 in the hospital, I heard heels clicking down the hallway. Not the polished sound of lawyers or family pretending to care. No, this was uneven, hesitant, almost shy. Then the door creaked open. It was her, my neighbor, Mary Ellen. She was holding a thermos in one hand, a paperback novel tucked under her arm. She was nervous, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed in. "I brought you some tea," she whispered. I hadn't cried since the night they carted me out on a stretcher, but in that moment, I felt my throat tighten, tears burning my eyes. I nodded. She poured the tea into a flimsy hospital cup, steam rising into the sterile air. It wasn't just tea. It was presence. It was proof that someone still gave a damn whether I lived or died. She sat down in the chair by my bed, her red, warm, trembling. "I heard you that night. I thought at first maybe I imagined it, but then I knew. I knew you needed someone." Her voice shook. "I don't understand how they could just—" She trailed off, pressing her lips tight. I reached for her hand, thin, warm, trembling. Because they don't see me as a person anymore. I'm just an obstacle between them and what they think is theirs. Her jaw set hard, sharper than I'd ever seen it. "Then you take it back. All of it." That sentence hit me like a hammer. Simple. True. Later that afternoon, a social worker stopped by, clipboard in hand. She asked questions about my living situation, my support system, my family. I laughed bitterly. Support system? They were waiting for me to die. The social worker's pen froze mid-scribble. Her eyes narrowed. Ma'am, do you understand this could lead to legal action, criminal charges? Good, I said, flat. Let it. By evening, I was sitting straighter, breathing easier, though my body still ached like fire. Mary Ellen stayed the whole time, reading out loud from her book when I dozed, refilling my water when the nurse forgot, reminding me I wasn't invisible. My children, my grandchildren, not one visit, not one. The nurse shook her head as she changed my IV. Usually when someone this sick comes in, their family camps out in the waiting room. Yours haven't even called. I smirked, though it tasted bitter. They're waiting for the inheritance, not the recovery. That night, when the lights dimmed and the ward went quiet, I stared at the ceiling tiles. Every line, every crack felt like a road map pointing me forward. I wasn't just healing, I was plotting. They thought my sickness had weakened me, but all it had really done was strip away any hesitation I had left. They left me to die, and now I was going to make sure every last one of them lived to regret it. Courtrooms have their own smell, dust, paper, old wood polished just enough to hide the rot beneath. That morning, when the bailiff called my name, I rose slowly from the bench, my cane tapping once, twice, like a drumbeat of defiance. My children sat at the defense table, suits they couldn't afford without my money, faces pale under the buzzing fluorescent lights. My grandchildren fidgeted behind them, whispering, avoiding my eyes. Cowards, every last one of them.
The judge cleared his throat. Case of neglect and elder abuse. People versus the Warden family. Elder abuse. Two words that sliced through the room sharper than any knife. I watched their shoulders twitch, watched shame creep up their necks like a rash. The prosecutor stood, papers in hand. Your Honor, we will prove that Mrs. Josephine Warden's own family denied her basic care, food, water, medical attention, while mocking her condition. We will prove they left her to die. The defense lawyer shifted in his seat, already sweating. These are exaggerated claims, family disagreements, nothing more. Exaggerated? I leaned on my cane, my voice cutting through the courtroom. I was dying in that bed. They laughed. Silence, the kind that tastes metallic. The prosecutor walked over, holding up photos, hospital charts, medical reports. Mrs. Warden weighed 92 pounds when admitted. Severe dehydration, malnutrition. The attending doctor noted one more day at home would have been fatal. The judge's gaze flicked to my children, cold, measuring. Then they called the witness, Mary Ellen, my neighbor. She walked up in her plain cardigan, hands trembling, but her voice steady. She told them everything, how she heard my cry, how she ran, how the police broke through the door and found me with lips cracked, eyes sunken, skin clammy, how my family just stood there like vultures, disappointed the carcass hadn't gone cold yet. My daughter tried to shake her head, tried to mouth liar, but the judge saw. He didn't like it. And then came the video. The officer's body cam. The footage showed my bedroom, me lying still, barely able to move, whispering, help. And in the background, my grandson's voice, what's the point? Followed by laughter. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The jury shifted in their seats, disgust plain on their faces. The prosecutor lowered his voice deliberately. Your Honor, this isn't family tension. This is cruelty. The judge banged his gavel once. Enough. I've heard enough for today. We'll resume with closing arguments tomorrow. As the bailiff led me out, reporters swarmed the hallways, cameras flashing, microphones thrust in my face. Mrs. Warden, how does it feel suing your own family? I stopped, steadying myself on my cane. I looked straight into the camera lens. How does it feel? My voice came out sharp, clear. It feels like justice. They left me to die.
Now I'll make sure the world never forgets it." The hallway erupted with voices, questions, chaos. But I didn't hear them. All I heard was the echo of my cane tapping on marble, a rhythm that sounded a lot like victory warming up. The pen felt heavier than it should have, not because of my age, not because of the tremor in my fingers, but because I knew what this stroke of ink would do. It would shatter every greedy little dream my children and grandchildren had whispered about when they thought I couldn't hear. We were in the office of my attorney, Mr. Callahan. Old desk, dark wood, blinds half open so the afternoon sun sliced the room into stripes. He read the will out loud, slow and deliberate, making sure every word landed like a hammer. 50% of the estate, he said, pausing, to the Riverview Home for Orphans. I saw my daughter's jaw drop. She whispered something to her lawyer, who shook his head, pale. 50%, Callahan continued, to Mary Ellen Barnes, neighbor, caretaker, and the only one who acted when others turned their backs. Mary Ellen sat in the corner, stunned, clutching her cardigan like it was armor. "Joe," she breathed, shaking her head, "I can't." "You can," I cut her off, my voice sharp. "Because you saved me when my blood didn't lift a finger." The room went dead quiet. Reporters outside pressed closer to the glass door. Cameras flickered through the slots of the blinds. My children knew every lens was pointed at their shame. My son slammed his hand on the table. "You can't do this! We're your family!" I turned and stared straight at him. "No, you're my disappointment. Family doesn't leave their own to rot." His face turned red, his lawyer tugging at his sleeve to sit back down. Callahan cleared his throat, calm as ever. "Mrs. Warden, please sign here." I took the pen. My hand didn't shake. The nib scratched against the paper like steel cutting through silk. One signature. That was all it took to erase them from my legacy. Mary Ellen's eyes filled with tears. The orphans would never know my face, but they'd feel my hand lifting them higher than my family ever lifted me. When I slid the document back across the desk, Callahan stamped it. Final, legal, irrevocable. I looked at my children, my grandchildren. You laughed while I begged for water. Let's see if you laugh when the world reads tomorrow's headlines.
The blinds rattled as another camera flashed outside. The vultures wanted a quote. Fine, I'd give them one. I stood, leaning on my cane, and said loud enough for every microphone to catch. My blood left me to die. My neighbor kept me alive. Now my estate will do the same. The door burst open, the press swarming, questions flying. My children ducked their faces, shielding themselves with folders and handbags. I walked through the chaos slow, steady, every tap of my cane a reminder that I wasn't done yet. This wasn't just revenge. This was a verdict. Shame doesn't whisper. It screams. And it screamed my children's names from every headline in the state. The morning news showed their mugshots lined up under the bold title, Elder Neglect Trial, Family Leaves Grandmother to Die. I sat in my hospital chair, robe loose around my shoulders, the caper trembling only because my hands were thin, not because I was afraid. They thought I'd be forgotten, just a frail woman in a bed. Instead, they became famous for cruelty. At the supermarket, people stood in line whispering, shaking their heads, spinning words like monsters and heartless. I heard the cashier say it plain to a customer, "That's the family that left their mother to rot. I'd be ashamed to carry their name." My son tried showing up at his office that Monday. By lunchtime, security was walking him out. "We can't have your kind representing this company," the HR woman said flat, without blinking. He begged. They turned away. My daughter? She went to the PTA meeting like nothing had happened. They voted her out in less than 5 minutes. One woman told her straight to her face, "If you can't care for your own mother, how can we trust you with our children's school?" My daughter didn't answer, just stormed out, face red, clutching her purse like it could hide her disgrace. And the grandchildren? Oh, the fall hit them the hardest. Ruby lost her full-ride scholarship. A single email, "Due to recent developments, your award has been rescinded." The boy, Connor, got cut from his football team. Bad publicity, the coach said.
They stood outside their schools, humiliated, their friends whispering behind lockers, "That's the girl whose grandma almost died in her own bed." Phones rang in my hospital room, late at night, desperate voices. My daughter's husband, voice quivering. "Mom, you have to fix this. Talk to the press. Tell them it's all a misunderstanding." I held the receiver, let their panic fill the line. Then I said 6 words, sharp and clean. "Now you know what silence feels like." And I hung up. Across the street, Mary Ellen's porch filled with flowers. Neighbors dropped off casseroles. Kids waved when she walked by. The church asked her to give a speech about community and courage. She tried to play it down, shy as always, but she deserved every bit of it. By Thursday, cameras camped outside my old house. A reporter stood with the mic, voice bright and merciless. This quiet neighborhood has become the epicenter of national outrage. The Warden family faces charges of elder abuse. Their matriarch survives thanks to the intervention of a brave neighbor. The curtains twitched, but nobody came out. My children hid inside like cornered rats, but shame is louder than silence. By Friday, the cars were gone, the driveway empty, the blinds shut for good. Word spread fast. They packed their bags and ran off to another state, hoping to escape the stink of their own names. But here's the truth. Shame sticks. Change your house, your license plate, your zip code. It doesn't matter. Type their names into a search bar and the story blooms. The family that left grandma to die. Employers will see it. Neighbors will see it. Strangers in line at the DMV will see it. They can't run far enough. And me? For the first time in years, I slept without clutching the blanket like a shield. I didn't need to. The world finally saw them as I did. Not family, not blood, not kin, just predators exposed under daylight. Their legacy is rot. Mine is survival. The day I left the hospital, the air felt different, cleaner, sharper, almost like the world had been scrubbed. I didn't go back to that house, the one where my cries echoed into nothing. No, I was done haunting those rooms. The van from Silver Pine Senior Residence was waiting. A modest place, brick walls with ivy creeping up, a front porch lined with rocking chairs. Not a mansion, not some glossy magazine spread, but honest. And after everything, honesty was what I craved most. A nurse named Clara helped me inside. "We've got a room ready for you, Mrs. Warden. Big window, morning sun. You'll like it here." She was right. The room was small but bright, curtains with blue flowers, a sturdy bed, a nightstand that didn't wobble like the one at home. Out the window I could see a garden patch, marigolds swaying in the breeze. I hadn't smiled in weeks, but something about those flowers tugged at my mouth until it happened. Small, thin, but real. That evening the dining hall buzzed with low chatter. Some in wheelchairs, some with walkers, a few walking steady and proud. I carried my tray, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, a cup of tea, and found a seat at a table where 3 women waved me over. "Come sit, honey," one of them said. Her name was Ruth, hair like snow piled high in a bun. Beside her, Lillian, who had eyes that saw right through you, but in a kind way. And May, sharp-tongued, grinning like she'd been waiting for me all along. It didn't take long before they had me laughing, really laughing. Ruth cracked jokes about the food. Lillian complained about the television channels. May swore she caught one of the orderlies sneaking a cigarette behind the shed. My chest hurt from chuckling, but in a way that healed instead of hollowed.
For the first time in months, I felt like a person again. Not a burden, not a corpse in waiting, just Joe. After dinner, I walked the garden path. The evening was cool, air scented with lilacs and damp earth. I sat on a bench, cane leaning against my leg, and listened to the crickets. Behind me, the building glowed warm, voices drifting out, soft and steady. And I thought, this is home now. Not because I chose it, but because it chose me when my blood abandoned me. The next morning, a staff member knocked on my door. "Mrs. Warden, you're in the newspaper again," she said, handing me a folded copy. Front page, "Family flees state after elder neglect conviction." Community praises survivor. There they were, my children and grandchildren, photographed at a gas station off the highway, hoods up, faces hidden. The caption read, "Infamous family leaves town in disgrace." I laid the paper aside and poured myself tea, not with triumph, not with bitterness, but with calm. They were running from shame. I was walking toward peace. And that was the difference. When I looked out the window, the sun had just touched the marigolds, bright, defiant, alive. So was I. The television hummed in the corner of the common room, the screen glowing with another breaking news banner. Reporters always did love a good fall from grace, and my family's fall was spectacular. Warden family officially convicted, children sentenced, grandchildren stripped of benefits. The anchor's voice was crisp, cutting. Once known only in their hometown, the Warden family is now infamous nationwide. Elder neglect, fraud, abuse. Their names will forever be tied to betrayal. Sources confirm the family has fled the state after sentencing, avoiding the eyes of neighbors who now spit at the mention of them. The screen flicked to grainy footage. My son and daughter shoving bags into the trunk of a beat-up car, faces down, avoiding cameras. Behind them, my grandchildren, heads bowed, one clutching a hoodie tight, as if fabric could shield them from the weight of their shame. Around me, the other residents murmured. One old man shook his head. Disgusting! I can't believe they did that to their own. But I could believe it. I'd lived it. I stood slowly, leaning on my cane, and walked to the window. The marigolds outside caught the last blaze of sunset, gold and stubborn. My reflection in the glass looked older, yes, but steadier. A staffer behind me asked, "Mrs. Warden, do you want the TV off?" I smiled, thin and sharp. "No, let it play. The world should see them for what they are." On the screen, a reporter shouted over the commotion. "Mrs. Warden has since moved to Silver Pines residence, where she is recovering. She's declined interviews, but neighbors say she is thriving, finally surrounded by care and dignity." I picked up my tea, the steam curling against my cheek. My family wanted me silent, buried in their indifference. Instead, the nation knew my name, and theirs. I turned from the window, my voice low, steady, each word landing like stone. They left me to die. Now their names will live forever as the punchline of their own disgrace. And I sipped my tea, calm as the storm I'd unleashed.